Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. Estimates suggest there's between 5.7 and 6.5 million second homes in the United States. That represents a meaningful portion of the housing stock. In fact, about 5%, if you consider it's about 133 million households in the U.S. And when people hear the phrase second home, they often picture an oceanfront mansion owned by someone who might be in the top 1%. But when you compare several million second homes with the total number of households, it becomes clear that ownership extends well beyond the ultra-wealthy. Some are like cottages that have been in families for generations. Some are small condominiums in warm climates, maybe a pied-à-terre in a downtown core. Others are hunting cabins, inherited homes, and houses purchased near children and grandchildren. And that raises an interesting question. When does a second or third home become an investment rather than just a vacation property? Ownership alone doesn't make something an investment. A vacation home is purchased primarily to provide a personal experience. The owner wants a place to visit, create family memories, escape the winter, or spend time near a favorite recreational activity. Financial return might be secondary. In many cases, there is no serious expectation the property will produce income. The owner accepts the taxes, the insurance, maintenance, utilities, and financing costs as the price of enjoying the property. That is consumption, even when the asset increases in value. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with consumption. The problem arises when people describe a lifestyle purchase as an investment to justify spending more than they can comfortably afford. An investment property, though, begins with a different question. Instead of asking, would I enjoy owning this property, the investor asks, what economic problem does this property solve, and what return should the capital produce? It's that difference in intention that makes it an investment, but intention alone isn't enough. Property becomes an investment when it's managed according to an investment thesis. That should be defined by the customer, perhaps by the source of revenue, an operating plan, a capital budget, and a credible exit strategy. But not every investor defines return the same way. Consider the condo market in Miami. Many units have historically been purchased for cash by buyers from Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, many countries in Latin America. For someone living in a country where the currency might be losing 15, 20, or 30% of value each year, the objective might not be to generate an attractive rental yield. In fact, the objective might be simply to preserve cash. If your domestic currency is shrinking by 20% annually, placing it into a property that earns zero is still preferable to losing 20% in cash. That's a different investment thesis. The investor is not necessarily buying income. They're buying stability, a hedge against inflation, maybe some geographic and legal diversification, and exposure to a real asset dominated in a stronger currency. In that context, a Miami condo might function less like a traditional rental property, more like a store of value. In fact, in that sense, a physical piece of real estate might be a more practical, more stable investment than a drawer full of gold coins. It has utility. It can be occupied. It can be rented, improved, financed, insured, and transferred. It exists in a functioning market with established ownership records. That doesn't mean that every cash condominium purchase is a good investment, but the return has to be evaluated against the investor's actual alternatives, not against the assumptions of someone living in a stable currency environment. Now, suppose you own a cottage and use it for 10 weeks a year. You might occasionally rent it to friends to offset the property taxes. It's still primarily a vacation property. The rental income is incidental to the personal use. Now, suppose you purchase a home in a mountain area after studying visitor demand, competitive supply, seasonal rates, maybe local regulations. You establish revenue targets, you maintain reserves, track your occupancy, and evaluate the return on equity. That becomes an investment, even if you stay there occasionally. The line is not determined merely by whether the property produces revenue. Many vacation homes generate revenue and still lose money. Owners often count gross rent while ignoring some of the operating costs like cleaning, management, repairs, utilities, and so on. So revenue alone doesn't automatically create an investment return. The tax authorities also distinguish between personal use and rental use, but a tax classification shouldn't be confused with an investment objective. A property can still qualify for certain rental deductions and represent a poor allocation of capital. The other end of the spectrum, a family retreat might appreciate substantially over decades, but appreciation doesn't retroactively prove that the original purchase was based on a sound investment thesis. Sometimes you get a good financial result from a lifestyle decision. That doesn't make that decision a disciplined one. So there's 3 useful tests. First, would you still buy the property if you were never allowed to use it personally? Second, would you continue owning the property if it stopped appreciating? And third, are you measuring the property against realistic alternatives for that capital? It's that third question that's perhaps the most important. For one investor, the alternative might be another income-producing asset. For someone else, the alternative might be holding a rapidly depreciating currency. A second home can also change categories over time. A vacation home purchase for personal use might later become a full-time rental. An investment property might eventually become a family retreat. That classification should reflect how it's being actually operated today and the financial purpose that it serves. There's no requirement that every property you own has to be an investment. A second home can provide enormous value through family connection, through recreation, and quality of life. Just call it what it is. If the primary return is personal enjoyment, then it's a lifestyle asset. If the property is designed to produce measurable financial return, then you might call it an investment. Clarity prevents us from confusing consumption with capital allocation. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.